I totally agree that in the short term, entrepreneurship and firm creation cannot be the remedy for unemployment, especially mass unemployment. And it is misleading to say that if we have numerous tiny startups, we're going to address the question of unemployment. However, I cannot see any way of creating new jobs in the medium and long term without entrepreneurs and firms. In other words, there is a link via production, innovation, experts, growth, spillovers to this growth, but this is not, this doesn't happen immediately. It takes some time. If in the meantime we're expecting few entrepreneurial ventures to address the 65% unemployment of young people in Greece, it would be unfair to the entrepreneurs first and to reality second. And of course they won't be able to do it. But we have to face the idea that we cannot find easy solutions to the mass unemployment problem. So we either start today and build the conditions to have some viable and sustainable jobs in the future, or we don't start today and we see unemployment rising and rising and rising forever. So this is a difficult topic, but this is my frank opinion.
I think some of the points were related to things I had said, so maybe I should also respond. I don't think I've said that these SMEs, new SMEs less than 5 years old that account for 60% of new job creation in Holland are all typical high-tech startups. But there is a good proportion of those that are have that profile. Whether startups can save, or whether startups can really be key to economic recovery in Greece, I think it is not extremely easy to, or maybe also not extremely relevant to discuss that question at depth. They can make a contribution to economic recovery in the longer term. And also, in a matter of a couple of years, these companies can grow very rapidly. There's a number of these examples around where companies grew from 5 to 2,000 employees in very little time. And there's also all kinds of spin-off effects. So these are really relevant, and it has happened. There are many examples around the world that you can quote. So my idea is that it's worth investing in it, knowing that not all of these companies will have that kind of growth. But if you only have some, it already helps a lot, and it creates creates examples for others as well. I also think that you should not narrow down your activities related to helping young people to set up an innovative business only to the IT sector. I think it's also very worthwhile to invest in people that want to do something in tourism or agriculture, or want to do that in an innovative way, because there is a lot of interesting stuff going on there, also in the creative sector. So I think you shouldn't look at it too narrowly. At least we don't do that at Orange Grove. In Orange Grove, all people are welcome, but although we focus mainly on IT, tourism, agriculture, and the creative sector. These are the main areas, but we don't exclude anybody at the outset. Whether we would help somebody that would challenge the Dutch souvlaki imperium, I don't think we would. I am absolutely sure, I can guarantee you that we do not first evaluate a startup when we decide about whether they are allowed into the program or not, whether they pose a threat to Dutch businesses in Greece. I mean, this is totally different kind of activities. In Holland, the startup scene is growing, but if you look at what Dutch companies do in countries like Greece, these are huge multinationals in totally different business. They can be relevant for startups because one of the things that is important for a startup is to have contacts also with companies of a different size. They're open to have those contacts. For instance, Philips, quite a big company, all 3 directors of Philips Hellas are mentors in Orange Grove, and they try to help people.
Alberto, you want to comment?
Yes. So I think on the jobs thing, we need to ask ourselves how you going to create jobs, and the only way you are going to create jobs is with growth. How you get with growth? You need to have specific points. You need to have, first of all, investors are looking where there is government stability. They are looking where there will be business tax reforms. They are looking where there will be a kind of a different system to immigration. This is the kind of things that we need to look. Administrative burden is another thing. If there is no driving of investment, and I'm speaking not in Greece, I mean in general in Europe, we are not going to have jobs, either big jobs or startups. Second point that I think we need to emphasize is the fact that there is no one size fits all for every market. I mean, and the market has changed. It's not something that has been in the 20 past years. And one example I have for that, you know, even 20 years ago, nobody in the telecom sector would have think about other competitors, but Google arrived, and now it's a partner. So, you know, I think there is hope for everybody.
Sorry, can I take the opinion of John also? How do you think of that? Are you ready to solve like the unemployment problem of Greece?
I think that startups create jobs because now we're on the verge of getting funded and we're hiring 4 people. Even if this is for 4 years, 5 years, even if a competitive buy us out, the company will still exist within the other company. So we have 4 seats right now, for people that will get paid for working track work. So I don't know how you see that it won't create jobs. It's a long-term investment. So today it's track work, tomorrow it's 5 more companies. In 2 years we'll have 200 startups with funding, creating job opportunities. I mean, I cannot see how this is not job creation, first of all. I want to connect what I said right now with the previous question, that even if you exit as a company, you still exist somewhere. So people that have worked or have been working in your company still work on your product. They don't buy your product and throw it in the garbage. They incorporate it. So I cannot see the connection between startups and not creating jobs. Yeah, they may not create long-term jobs, 20 year jobs, but even big companies do not do that. I mean, they change personnel all the time. Anyway, okay, that was my...
I wouldn't say that the question if startups are creating jobs. I think that this is happening, but the question is, you know, if it's a way to recovery or a way out of the crisis.
It is one way. It adds to this, to the recovery. It's not going to be the solution. The startups, it's not the only thing to do in order to recover from crisis. But it is a new thing. It creates opportunities. It helps people that never thought before of starting companies start doing that. I mean, only good things happen from that. The question is how much to invest in this thing, not to over-invest. Not to create a bubble.
Yeah.
40 million at the moment.
40 million. That's not.
Sorry,
that's
there
not.
is a guy there trying to take the floor.
Hello, Dimitris Katsouris. I just think more of a comment than a question. A very important issue which tends to be overlooked generally in Europe, I think, and which the ambassador, I think, and the professor touched on, is because everyone's talking about, in a sense, copying and pasting Silicon Valley in Europe, is the mentality gap that exists between the US and Europe, and not just in terms of entrepreneurs and how they look at entrepreneurship and risk and failure, also in terms of the investors, the angels and the VCs. I spoke with a top VC who came to talk at Orange Grove, and he said the mentality of the VC in the US is much more risk prone compared to the VC in Europe, which are more like commercial bankers and invest much more conservatively, and that's important because it has an end result in terms of the startups that they invest in. Another issue is, for example, business angels, which are basically non-existent, especially in Greece and more in Europe. I speak with startups in Greece, and they to advise them, and they said, I found a business angel, and there's a misconception generally, business angel is a high net worth individual who invests in startups. And he says, and this goes back to the issue of mentality, because he said, I found a business angel, he's got money he wants to invest, and he wants 51% of the company. That's not a business angel, it's issue mentality. You talk to business angels in the US and in more liberal and more in startup attractive environments in Europe. So I think the issue of mentality is very important, and it goes to the root of the issue. And if we want to create a culture, not just entrepreneurship, from the entrepreneurs, also in terms of the investors, in terms of VCs and business angels, because that has a result, that affects the end result in terms of the startups they invest in and in terms of the culture that Europe wants to promote in terms of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm very glad to respond to this comment because I think mind frames is probably the bed of the greater obstacles that contemporary societies are facing, and Greece in particular. So it's not only in terms of attitude towards failure or giving a second and third and endless chances. It's also attitude vis-à-vis wealth. I think that the sad reality is that in Greece we have a two-pronged approach to wealth. It is a good thing privately. Everybody wants to be rich. It's a very bad thing publicly. Nobody loves rich people. And this is also the same question like attitude to success. If success is something that happens to me personally, I'm very in favor of it. But in general, I'm very suspicious vis-à-vis successful people, and I think that there must be something fishy over there. So if we do not demystify the success as a goal, wealth as the end result of a successful endeavor, and we shall never demystify entrepreneurship. And I feel that very little has been said in general in the public discourse in Greece vis-à-vis these issues. This is my contribution.
Could I just also go back a little bit to the previous discussion about whether, and that's the key question of today, I think, whether the startup scene can make a difference. I think you can approach from different angles. First of all, what else is going to make the difference then? What else is going to make the difference? Where do you expect that growth? The other thing is, if you want a sector to make a difference, choose something for which you have the right raw material. And if you have a lot of well-educated, creative young people that are available to do this, do it. I think another very important factor for this sector nowadays is the quality of living. There's many Dutch startups that go to places like Barcelona and Costa Rica in the winter because they're basically footloose in their activities. They take their laptop, they work there. Why not Athens? Now they also go to Tel Aviv. What's the difference? Well, maybe that there's a big defense industry in Israel that has a lot of spin-offs. But there is also the quality of life, the Mediterranean climate, what have you, a cool place to be, etc. Use that, and if there is really something gets going that people think, yeah, Athens is cool for startups, and articles like the one in the New York Times help a lot, then things can start snowballing and it can make a difference. That's one point I want to make. The other thing is I didn't react to it in the first instance because I think if something really gets you going, you should try to shut up for a while and then react. But I really take issue with this expression of a kindergarten for 35 years old. I mean, this is creating a community It's a meeting place for people, it's a place for collaboration, and it's a place where people can learn. When they're 35 years old or not, I find it a big disdain for the people that are working there to call it that way. I really take issue with that.
Yes, Alberto, please.
Yeah, I think I think that there is responding also to you, to the ambassador, what he was saying. I think why startups are important. I think they are also important because they are working on innovation, and innovation is clear to be developing in Europe. We are already, let's say, losing some position through other continents. And who is doing that? Of course, large companies, but if there is a very small company that is doing a big technology advancement in one particular sector, you will drive innovation and you will stay in Europe. So I think that's only positive, I think.
Regarding the investors and venture capital firms, you couldn't be right. I mean, there has to be an education period for investors as well, because venture capital investment, angel investors and all that stuff in Europe is something really young, and in Greece it's non-existent. I mean, just started. They don't have the experience. And many angel investors and venture capital firms think that they're either banks or they don't want to take that risk. They don't know what investing in a startup company is. So I believe that there has to be a period of education for both sides, startups and investors as well. I think that we're on the right direction. I mean, they want to create an angel fund, a Greek angel fund. I think they're starting bringing intelligence from the US, from the UK. I think that this is, Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, someone has to suffer this, but at least good things are happening. At least people are interested in investing, and at least they start to see opportunities. And with the right guidance, I think they can make great things.
Hi, my name is asbl. I've been a passive observer of the startup ecosystem from Europe for the past 4 years. And taking on Alberto's point about how tech startups are moving to Europe now, Silicon Valley, what I've seen from friends who are working there in the scene is that it's to a large extent the result of a top-down approach and of very close coordination of action of both public and private sectors. In Greece, what I've seen online is Endeavor, you have Coralia, the innovation think tank, you have a handful of incubators and angel investors and other advisors and actors like that, but it's unclear to me the degree of fruitful and coordinated collaboration that the government, to your point about the ministry not even supporting. And do you believe that if that is not really the case, do you believe that it would significantly, substantially change the fate of the scene in Greece? So more top-down, concentrated effort. Thank you.
Maybe take all the questions at once. I think there's 2 others.
All right. Sorry, there is you. Yeah, I should have given the floor to you, please. You want to ask a question? Yes.
Hi, my name is George Pandalamides, and I'm both a Greek entrepreneur, but also I'm working for within the Liberal Party's environment. And I very much agree with what Professor Liberakis said. And I would like to put a question to the ambassador and to the gentleman from the AT&T. And the question is this: I think we all agree that by voting for the Greek entrepreneurship environment is to make the Greeks more entrepreneurial and to make them aware of how not entrepreneurial they are. So in this point of view, would the embassy, the Orange Grove and AT&T would be able to encourage an internship kind of system where a lot of young Greeks, after some, 1 month or 2 months, they taught the basics of entrepreneurship, then they can be interns in a company in Holland or in a company where AT&T may be anywhere in the world, where they will be able to be exposed basically to the entrepreneurial world, because this is what most Greeks are lacking, exposure to the real world. Thank you.
I would like to ask a very simple question in order to round up this table. Could we have, let's call it a catalogue, of what are the main obstacles that prevent the flourishing of startups? What are the difficulties in Greece? Exactly.
I think John and the ambassador are the most people to answer that question. John?
Bureaucracy, which is being reformed. There are many, the one-stop shops and all that stuff really help, but we have a long way. The problem that if you create a Greek company, probably you won't be able to attract foreign investors. So that's why you have to start from local investors. And another problem that we're facing now is what the gentleman said with the investors, that they're not educated enough to know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and how to efficiently invest and how to help you grow your company instead of just investing and once take control over your company. These are the main problems. I believe that we have a lot of talent in Greece. I mean, at least in the technology sectors, we have brilliant minds and very capable people. So I'd stick to bureaucratic and the whole structure. I mean, I can create a company in the UK in 1 day, an LTD company, or in Ireland in 2 days without being there and having 10% tax. I mean, that's a really good incentive, and Greece has to do something in order to keep me here, keep every startup here. I mean, I can physically not even go there and create a company in 1 day. So a lot of things have to be done in the bureaucratic, political, and legal sectors.
So taxation is another problem.
Yeah, of course. We have 26%.
Well, then the task force for Greece, which you are in contact with, is aware of these problems?
They're definitely now becoming aware of the problems. I think very relevant is the startup manifesto that's now being drafted. There is a good list of issues to be tackled. I think John mentioned a number of them. Apart from legal tax issues, I think there's also something about having the right contacts with larger companies, with academic communities, with startups elsewhere. People will have to think internationally in order to have the connections that maybe in a place like London or Berlin you have automatically because they're around you and they're not here. But I think distance is of less importance than it used to be in an online world. On this issue of whether something should be created, not entirely sure that I follow you. I think indeed governments, also regional governments, can play an important role. On the other hand, I think it's also a bit of a risk to look to other actors than yourself in order to make a decisive step. Because if they don't move, you will still be waiting in a couple of years. So what we thought is let's do something. Let's simply start with this. And this Orange Grove idea came into being in April last year, and in September we opened. And sometimes you simply have to do things, and sometimes it is a success, sometimes it fails. But I always try to look at what can I do myself And I thought, well, maybe what we can do is use the networking power of our embassy, because this is basically about that. People want to be part of that network, and you know a lot of people. Let's use that for these young entrepreneurs.
In the sense of rounding up the discussion, I would like to say that apart from the political, macro-institutional, tax and mind frames issues that have been raised today, I would like to raise two more obstacles that to my mind are very important. One is that Greece is a low-trust society, which means that this interferes with risk-taking, with networking, with cooperation, with lots of transactions that would flourish much more easily had there been more trust around. And the second aspect, which is less common to be noted by an economist, is discrimination and lack of equal opportunities, even starting from the remark that today in this crowd of people, no woman contributed at all, although some of them, few, are present. I've been thinking about the gender balance in startups, and I would like somebody to give me figures about what this gender balance looks like compared to the general entrepreneurial gender balance, and the relevant gender balance in other countries in Europe, in Sweden and in Denmark and and also in Egypt, for instance. And I think we would expect to see very interesting aspects. This does not only apply to women, it also applies to migrants and people coming from minority background. I think lots of very interesting ideas would make things very different had these people the chance to put them into practice.
As far as women are concerned, I think that it's in Greece and in Europe and all over the world, it's really picking up the number of girls and women that are participating in that ecosystem. I mean, here in Greece, in Athens, you see a lot of females in all the events or hackathons or star weekends, etc. Of course, they are not like a majority or they are not a big number, but there is.
In Orange Grove, we have something like 35% women, and some of the very best startuppers are women. A number of the competitions that we organize are won by female-headed companies, which makes me think that maybe the number 35% is relatively low, also because maybe more females have found themselves other jobs. They're less selective in jobs they're doing, and for the guys it's more of an option to say I start my own company.
All right, we have another 40 minutes. I would suggest that we go to the buffet, have a drink, have a cake, something like that, talk to each other, network with each other, yeah. And if you need to, talk something with our panelists, with our guest speakers, feel free to
Let me take the opportunity to say goodbye to Suzanne, who will be leaving for the Earth of the Cultural Clay, and to thank her for her most decisive help in bringing this seminar about. Gracias.